Yeah, I got to play a lot of Guilty Gear, and fortunately, it was pretty damn fun. I can give you my core like base impression of the game, and the biggest impression that I got is it's freaking gorgeous. Like, game actually looks a lot better than what you're even seeing here. No kidding, it looks really damn good. And it's a big comparison when you put like Guilty Gear Xrd side by side to this. And you realize how much better the lighting is, how much better the character models are, the visuals, everything, dude. I'll say it right now. These guys are, in my opinion, making the best looking fighting games there are. And things, you thought shit was over the top? Like, you thought shit was, in Xrd, was like the particle effects and the head effects and the sound and all that shit? You thought it was crazy in Xrd? Oh my God. There was a moment where I didn't play with headphones at all because I was talking with all the other FGC dudes that were there, and we were all figuring and picking the game out and sharing stuff. And then I realized I had not listened to it at all. And I got one last match in with Steve, and I wanted to hear the game. So I got to hear like the music riling up, and then the main theme of the game kicks in, like smell of the game, and then I got to hear the characters scream at each other and do all this shit, and it was just like, wow! Like, the visual audio splendor of Guilty Gear 2020, I'm sorry, Guilty Gear Strive is on an absolute other level. Like, it is the epitome of what I love about fighting games. And it is really, it's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. The big question that everyone's gonna wanna know is, how toned down is Guilty Gear by comparison to a game like Xrd? And I'm telling you it is. It's definitely toned down. The nice part is that what I was saying before, that Xrd's such a mechanically deep and sort of complex game, that even if you take away half the mechanics of a game like Xrd, I'm not saying Xrd sign, I'm saying just Xrd as a whole, you're still gonna have a pretty nutty fighting game. And that's essentially what the new Guilty Gear is. It's got about like half as much as what it feels like the depth of what some characters has, because some tools that characters had before are just gone. They specifically took things that characters could do and either toned them down or took out something. And so now they don't have that. One of the biggest examples I can give you is that yellow Roman cancel, the act of like throwing out a move without hit or block and just being able to do it and cancel yourself behind it, was a big part of what made Xrd kind of crazy and frustrating for some people. And it's still in this game. You can still do practically YRCs in this game. It's just that the Roman cancel system's a lot more intuitive. However, what we noticed by playing the game was the fact that when you YRC'd something, like I'm just using YRC as a general, if you threw out like a fireball or something and then RC'd after, it is more expensive now. But it seems like just throwing out stuff in neutral, the tools the characters have to just throw out something in neutral and then follow up behind it, didn't seem nearly as potent. It didn't seem like what you could throw out to just follow behind wasn't quite as good as the previous game. So the mechanic's still there, but the very obvious like unga bunga stuff isn't there as much. Like, for example, Saul just can't grind his thing on the floor, like grind sword on the floor, go for a low attack, and hopefully get you with one of the biggest, craziest uppercuts in the game. Like, Grand Viper acts different. It's actually more similar to what he had. We played it last night in Guilty Gear, the latest version of Guilty Gear XX. So he's got like a grinding like uppercut. It whacks you up, and it's like, it's different. The one thing I will say absolutely, and everyone echoed this, like all the pro Guilty Gear guys and everyone else that was casually playing characters, was like, the game genuinely feels like a different game. It feels totally different than the previous Guilty Gear, and there was a little bit of legacy skill that carried over from the classic Guilty Gears to, you know, Guilty Gear Xrd, because they were trying to emulate the 2D games in 3D, so a lot of things were very similar in Xrd. That's not the case in this game, man. Like, it feels, the way Saul's basic slash, like Saul's basic standing slash is literally a close range punch. And if you want to get a long range slash, you have to press forward slash, And it has a huge amount of recovery. Like, Saul's a thick-ass bitch in this game. He's heavy, and he's thick, but he does a lot of damage. But that's kind of echoing everyone. Everyone seems to do a ridiculous amount of damage. The game is so high damage that you don't exactly need long combos in order to get crazy damage. Do long combos lead to crazy damage? They do. But as the game is designed in its current demo state, things just, I'm not even paying attention to the life bar and the game is over. I feel like I hit them maybe 4 or 5 times and it's done. I'm like, wait, what? You really have to like pay attention to the characters or the life bars because it's just over so fast. And that's not even including like when you actually find combos, because the biggest combo opportunities that are in the game are definitely in the corner. And the corner allows for a wall splat setup, and you can break the wall several times until it opens up. The whole gimmick is that if your combo's really long and you smack a dude into the corner, they'll like almost immediately break through. But if the combo's short, or if that first hit smacks them into the wall, then you get multiple wall breaks. It has a certain amount of durability to it. You could break that durability by already having a long extended combo. So the combo system absolutely feels like it's toned down, but I don't think it's going to be like severely nerfed. I think it does feel like the game is still setting up for moments where you can do optimized stuff, where you can go for corner, where you can, actually utilize combo mechanics in order to get what you need to do based on situational awareness, which is good. It's just that they're not nearly as long or difficult to do. Like now they're just much, 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 much easier. And the stage transitions don't have a huge impact on gameplay. Like, you get so much meter in this game that it's nuts. It feels like you always have 50% bar to waste or use or do something with. And the supers, at least for Saul, were very underwhelming, or his one super was underwhelming. It was all about RCing, whatever you could do, and going for crazy stuff, just trying to mix people up. I really did enjoy it, but it absolutely felt, and this is my quick summary, that it felt like Street Fighter V and Guilty Gear Xrd had a baby, and that game is Guilty Gear Strive. It really feels that way, and that's a big part with throw whiffs. That's a big part with how the characters feel more grounded in their approach, and how things just feel meaty and weighty, and how the big one is the fact that the normal chain combos of Guilty Gear are gone. You can't do punches, kicks into heavier attack buttons. Everyone essentially was forced to do what appeared to be slash into heavy slash, so medium into heavy. And then you could cancel after that for some characters. Saul, for example, if you landed his heavy attack, it knocked them the hell away. The only way you can follow up his heavy attack with a move is if you were already in the corner. So if you did like, crouching medium into standing heavy, boom, they're like flying across the whole screen. So I'm like, uh-oh, wow, that's woo, okay. And then the characters' moves act like completely different than the previous games. Saul had like a dive kick in Guilty Gear Xrd, or previous Guilty Gears, and now it's been replaced with like a charging dive punch. So things are just really, and it acts differently. It's everything on the character that I was playing and familiar with from the previous game was just acting a bit different. And that's a part that I'm not super happy with. Not the acting different, the fact that the core mechanics of Guilty Gear, being able to press a lot of buttons in your combos, the fact that you're going to sacrifice damage for a big hit confirm of like punch, 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 kick into whatever, I'm super cool with that, dude. But right now in the game, because everyone's combos are starting with like mediums and heavies, their damage is just ridiculous. And the fact that you can't really start combos with punches, the fact that punches are just there for like jabs for the most part, really feels like they're encouraging more of a grounded game between the characters. But that doesn't mean there's still not combo opportunity, because there definitely was. Like, I was already finding things that we hadn't seen much of before that looked super sick. Because the new RC system, I think, is very smart. I think what they've done with I keep calling it roll canceling. I think what they've done with RCs and how they work, Roman cancel system was super convoluted in the previous game. And now it makes a lot more sense. And it makes more sense that everything costs 50% your bar. I think that's a very good call. And the defensive stuff you get from it is actually cool too, because it doesn't, you would think it like knocks them and knocks you out of the game completely. It doesn't. It's sort of just like a reset back to neutral. And that's a big one. There's a big thing that I was feeling, that this game wants to reset you back to neutral all the time. Like, for example, you jump in on a guy and you anti-air them. You can block in the air now, just reliably. You can just press back to block. If they're jumping in and they're blocking and then you anti-air them, in any other fighting game, they blocked, they land in front of you, you get punished. In Guilty Gear Strive, they walk in or they jump in, they block your uppercut, they don't go down, they fly back. So it's like uppercut, poof, and they jump back, and it resets you back to neutral. So instead of that person on the offense blocking and then being defensive, falling down and punishing you, boink, and then you both like reset back to neutral. It's crazy. I was like, what? Like, excuse me? Like, it was definitely a very weird feeling, because that didn't feel like that's in any fighting game. It was a very, very, very much different feeling. And I feel like a lot of the mechanical changes they're going for are definitely to appeal towards a casual audience, and I definitely disagree with that, because I think what's gonna pull people into this game, as I said many times before, is its characters and visuals. That's what's gonna pull people into Guilty Gear, and Guilty Gear has always had a very, very challenging road ahead of it, because it's an anime roster, it's an anime game that appeals towards the anime fighting audience, as well as people that hardcore like fighting games. But breaking beyond that, because that audience isn't huge, is challenging. And they're gonna have to do it through marketing, through keeping its graphics and characters the interesting, maybe even having guest characters. Because right now it's like, you tell somebody like, this game's super easy to play, that's not what's gonna get people to play. People will commit to a fighting game regardless of how easy or difficult it is, as long as it has fun characters that they enjoy to play. And if they enjoy playing the game. So, all things considered, I hope that they take a step back on some of this stuff. Dust was also really good, but Dust doesn't lead to launchers, and that was just weird. You just knock them over. You just knock them right over. And then you have to land a counter hit to get the jumping Dust attack, but when you're in the air, you're very, very limited on what you actually can do in the air. So it's weird. Like, I feel like you press a lot of buttons in Guilty Gear. I feel like you press a whole bunch of buttons in this series, and now you don't as much. Now there's not nearly as much button pressing in Guilty Gear as there was before. At its core, it still has like the neutral feel of what Guilty Gear has always kind of felt like. You still have like air dashes and running and mobility and super jumps and all that shit. So it still feels like you're playing Guilty Gear, which is good, because in the end, I was actually having a lot of fun, and I was enjoying the fact that at the end of this, I felt like I could still discover more, which is the most important thing. I've played a few fighting games in first impressions, and then at the end of it, I feel like I'm like, I don't know if there's much else to figure out outside of maybe a setup or two. I don't know, man. In this game, I didn't feel that. It feels like there's enough opportunities with, the RC system, with the way mobility works, that you're gonna get some really interesting, crazy shit. But it's gonna be different than previous Guilty Gears, and I don't think that's specifically a bad thing, but I'm not a big fan of, the way Dust has changed, the way that Gatling/chain combos have changed. I do kind of want that to go back to the way it was, because that's a big part of what makes Guilty Gear 2, is the fact that you press a lot of buttons a lot of the time, and the fact that this Dust thing has sort of been very similar for the majority of games it's been in. But long story short, I'm still waiting on some other characters. I really enjoyed Saul in the game, but Saul every character definitely feels like a toned down version of a Guilty Gear Xrd character, while things have been sort of mixed up and changed and, things like that. So I want to play more. I really want to show you guys stuff in the future, because I don't have the appropriate footage right now. Hopefully I'll get some soon, and have you listen and see and check out what characters are doing and see how much damage things are doing and what it sounds like. All that is a big part of it. But I can't help but shake the feeling that for anyone that has perspective, that has played a lot of Guilty Gear games or has played like Xrd, it's going to come across as a little weird to a lot of people, just because it is so different. It is drastically changing things in many different directions while trying to keep the core experience sort of there. And I felt like going back to an older Guilty Gear, like Guilty Gear XX, which we did the other night, reminded me a lot of this. Like, just the way the old Guilty Gear games kind of feel. It's like that, but just a little bit slower because the impact of the hits have much more weight to them. And things are much more beefy. So I don't know. I think it's a good thing that Guilty Gear 2020 Strive isn't coming out until the later portion of 2020. Because I think they do want to take feedback. The fact that they're even acknowledging that people want rollback netcode in surveys, and the fact that they're getting feedback from people in terms of how the game plays, I think is good. Because we're still pretty far away. This game was shown much earlier than I thought it was going to be releasing, and what I thought was going to be a mid-2020 release is now the end of 2020 release. So from now, we're not going to be seeing this game launch for like potentially another year. And that's probably the best thing, because if people say enough stuff, then I think you can get some of the fun things that make Guilty Gear a lot of fun sort of back in the game. And I hope that definitely takes precedence over them trying to casualize it, because this has been happening to a lot of fighting games lately, and all it's really, I don't think it builds your audience that much. I think it really just hurts your core audience a little bit. And you're gonna lose your core audience to make up for the few new people that are gonna come in. So that's like the weird trade that fighting games have to make. Unless, you know, Goku's in the game. Unless you add like a Bleach character, you know? Like that's the kind of thing that they have to do for Guilty Gear to try to get people on board with it, because of the way it looks, because of what it is, being a really weird, hyper anime fighting game. And I hate saying that, but that's the kind of stuff that you have to think about. The roster of this game and its legacy, it's a niche-ass thing that looks incredible and makes a lot of the hardcore fighting fans super happy because of the way it plays. And its visuals, obviously. But Xrd should have absolutely appealed to more people, but it didn't. The follow-up game did, Dragon Ball, which looked better, which was like a more improved looking version of Xrd. But the reason that happened is because it's Dragon Ball, dude. It's a 30-year-old thing that the world loves. Of course, people are gonna love the game that looks better than the shows they were watching. And Guilty Gear doesn't have that illustrious of a worldwide legacy. Pretty much hardcore fighting game fans and a selection of anime fighting game fans really love this stuff. And as much as I've been playing these games off and off for 20 years, I don't agree with casualization bringing people in for this one. I think they have to take another route, and I think they need better marketing or something. But I hope things change. I hope I get the chance to show you more stuff that's in the game, because there is actually some super sick stuff in the game. Even a half-crazy Guilty Gear Xrd is still an absolutely nutty fighting game, which this is going to be. So we'll see what it turns out. There's going to be a lot more demos. There's going to be a lot more characters I think are going to be shown. And there's going to be even more of that sooner than later, because there's tournaments showing up pretty soon. And I want to see more new characters, really. Right now they're sticking pretty safe with Faust being the latest revealed character. And these are almost all the mainstay characters that were in the original Guilty Gear, outside of like Zato, Eddie. So, and Cliff, obviously. But I kind of want to see the new guy. I want to see what the new guy can do. And I want to see the game I want to see people appreciate Guilty Gear, because it's always been a painful thing that a game as amazing as like Guilty Gear Revelator and Guilty Gear Xrd sold as little as it did, with it playing and looking as good as it did. And that's just because it's niche, which is unfortunate. So I really want to play more, and I want to show it off, and hopefully that'll be happening sooner than later.